Hey guys, welcome to the show. We're getting into season 4 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer now with episode 1. This is called The Freshman. Now I'm going to flip through this one very quickly tonight. I'm running really late and I just discovered today that I'm on a different shift at work. So I have to be there at stupid o'clock in the morning and it's literally 9:18 at night right now, and this should have been up at 9 o'clock. So apologies, but I'm going to try my hardest to keep these coming on the day, if not at the right time, on the day. So The Freshman, episode 1, season 4, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's a little bit of comedy at the start of this one. It's more of a fish out of water story for Buffy, this one. They're starting college in this episode. At the very beginning, Buffy and Willow, they're on a stakeout in a cemetery and they're discussing which classes that Buffy should take for her first semester. They discuss the fact that Buffy is choosing her courses at the last second, which she credits to a busy summer slaying, and that Giles has told her to start keeping her identity as the Slayer under wraps again. That goes without saying, but it is what it is. The vampire they're waiting for, what they're doing is, there's a fresh grave and they're waiting for, they know it's a vampire. A guy was killed by a vampire. There's a possibility that he was made to feed from the vampire. Of course, that's what happens. So, as they're sitting waiting, they've got their back to the grave, and Buffy's more or less talking about she has to be on her toes and just be really aware of everything that's going on, especially getting into this new chapter. And while she's going over this whole rigmarole stuff, the vampire rises, comes up out of the grave, and he starts to sneak up on him, prepares to attack. But he notices Buffy's arsenal of vampire slaying gear sitting behind them, realises who she is, and he kind of just gives a little shrug of his shoulders and just skulks off. And just as he disappears, they turn around and look at the grave, and is this guy ever going to wake up? So that's it. We get into the opening credits of the episode, and the next day Buffy arrives at the Sunnydale campus. She's ready to select classes and move into her dorm room. However, she's completely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of people there are, as well as been handed flyers for various campus groups, fraternities, and general student protesters. Now, I did laugh whenever I seen this here, because these days, not to get political on the show, but everybody is fighting over the stupidest little thing these days. Every fart saying there's somebody going on about something online, and it's not a new thing, and this episode just really kind of drove that home. You've seen all these people up with banners and protesting and getting on and handing flyers out to people. So it's not a new thing, it's just a new variation of an old theme, essentially what's going on online these days. Buffy meets with Willow and Oz and tells them that she feels, disorientated with the new experience. Willow, on the other hand, is excited by the new surroundings and is enjoying pretty much everything that's going on around her. Oz is also not fazed at all due to Dingo's Eating My Baby playing there on a regular basis, although he claims not to have a clue what's going on, but he already knows nearly everybody that passes him. So they should fish out of water straight off the bat, and this one for Buffy. Buffy and Willow tour around the campus, check out the library, and they're kind of not weirded out, but they're kind of used to the little library that they had at the high school, and they walk into this thing and it's just massive, it's huge, and it's just a different world for them in this episode. While they're in checking all this out, they're also discussing Giles enjoying his free time now that he's no longer a watcher or a librarian, and Willow says he's like a he's enjoying being a man of leisure, and Buffy's like, that's just like an English way of saying that he's unemployed. Yeah. Also, Xander, they're talking about him. He's still away on his summer cross-country trip. Buffy and Willow go to visit. They're actually in the library. I'm jumping ahead in my notes again, as per usual. Yeah, Buffy tries to get hold intro to psychology book, and she knocks him off the shelf onto the head of an hour student. He introduces himself as Riley Finn, the teaching assistant for Professor Walsh's Psych 105 intro to psychology class. Of course, if you've seen the show, if you're a fan of the show and you're listening to this podcast, you know where this is going. And this is going to be the new love interest for Buffy moving forward. But in all fairness, once again, it's been that long. I think probably 15 plus years since I watched this series properly. I do know where it's going, but I just can't remember how it gets there. But yeah, there's a darker side to Riley. But Angel left in the previous series, so somebody else is going to have to step in and fill his shoes. And as soon as we meet this guy, you're kind of like, okay, this is going to be the person that replaces Angel in the series, and he does to an extent. Buffy arrives in her new dorm room at Stevenson Hall. She's already moved in, and her new roommate Kathy is in the process of doing so. Kathy tells Buffy that she can tell that she's cool and thinks that the upcoming year is going to be super fun. While she's hanging a poster of Celine Dion, much to Buffy's chagrin. That's a word I never use, but yes, when I say I'm using notes here, I literally have been running that far behind it and do my own notes this time. I screenshotted a few things off the internet here to keep myself right as we're going through this review, so that's not a word I would normally use, but it is what it is. Let's keep going. During the night, Buffy's got trouble sleeping because her roommate snores, laughs, and makes weird noises in her sleep, so yeah, it's not a great start to her college life. The next day, Buffy attends a class in order to find out if enrollment is still open. However, when she asks the person next to her, the professor humiliates her and throws her out of the class. Like, if you're not on my list, he holds this clipboard up, if you're not on this list, you're not in my class. Get out, you're holding everybody back. And he just belittles her as much as he can, pretty nastily, in all fairness. Later, with Willow and Oz, she attends Psych 105, and Professor Walsh jokingly states that those students not in her good graces will come to know her as the evil bitch monster of death. Students who stay in her favour will become to know her as Maggie. Buffy is further unnerved, realising that college is going to be far harder than high school ever was. That night she's out doing a bit of her rounds and just trying to, get some time to herself. And she meets a guy called Eddie, another freshman student who's just as messed up as she is at this point. They discuss their need of a security blanket and their unfamiliar surroundings. Eddie tells Buffy that his security blanket, the thing he would use, is the novel of Human Bondage, which he has read 10 times and keeps by his bed. Buffy's and Mr. Pointy, of course. Then they go their separate ways. Eddie runs into a gang of vampires led by Sunday, probably one of the most annoying vampires that ever show up in the whole run of Buffy. Didn't take to this character at all in this series, and by the end of the episode, whenever she gets her ass handed to her, I was kind of glad to see it. The group break into Eddie's dorm room, taking all his stuff, leaving behind only a note on the bed that's like, this is too much for me, I'm leaving. It's just like, the next day, yes, I was going to go down another route with what I was saying there, but I'm not going to do it. Pretty much what they're doing is, if they're not killing people, they're turning them, and then they're raiding the dorm rooms, stealing all their stuff, and then leaving notes to tell the college that, I can't do this. It's too much for me. I've quit school. I'm leaving. So the next day, Buffy, she's looking for Eddie in the psych class, but she can't find him because they made a connection the night before because they're both in the same place in this episode. They're both overwhelmed, and she goes to her room, a possible friend, let's just say. So she goes to his dorm to find the note in the empty room, and the resident assistant explains that some students just can't handle the college life and they bail out early. It happens all the time. Although as Buffy sits down, she spots of human bondage still in the nightstand. So she's like, straight away, if this is his security blanket, the book that he finds comfort in, if he did leave, why didn't he take this with him, of all things? Yeah. In Sunday's lair, the vampires go through Eddie's belongings, and Sunday, the main vampire villain of this group, she's like, we need to go after cooler people, and she gets ready to go out in that evening's hunt, and lying dead on the floor, there's Eddie, and then his eyes snap open. So we get back to Buffy, and she goes over to check out what's happening with Giles, and finds a girl with next to her no clothes on, just a shirt, in his apartment. She's an old friend named Olivia, who refers to Giles as Ripper, so she knows who he is, where he came from. There's a connection between these two. Buffy tells Giles of the mysterious disappearance, tells him that they need to start researching and find out what's going on. But Giles, he's just, he's reluctant to help, and he remembers. He reminds Buffy that he's no longer her watcher. You quit the council. You haven't got a watcher anymore. You don't need a watcher. You need to freaking grow up and sort yourself out. You just have to learn how to handle these things yourself. Buffy leaves, kind of disheartened, while Giles reminds her he'll always be there for her if she really needs him. That night, Buffy manages to run into Eddie in a deserted part of the campus, and she says she's sorry for what happened to him, but he responds he's not, and he changes into the vampire, goes to attack her, but he's a fresh vampire. He's only just been turned, and he's no match for the Slayer, so she takes him out in short order, and the group of vampires that turned Eddie are watching. So Sunday, this girl, the most annoying vampire in the history of the show, in my humble opinion, attacks Buffy. Buffy gets her ass handed to her by the vampires. Not the vampire. She gets her ass handed to her by this girl, Sunday. And yes, all the rest of the vampires are just watching. With her arms sprained, Buffy runs. She's shaken by the fight and goes home the next day and finds her mother surprised to see her home so soon, then discovers that her mother is actually using Buffy's room as a storage space for the gallery. And she's like, freaking me, I'm not out of the house 5 minutes and you're already, it's my bedroom, And our mother's like, this is always going to be your home, that's always going to be your bedroom. But Buffy's like, I would like a bedroom that could actually fit into. But Joyce is living her life, trying to pay the bills and whatnot. They're doing some stuff with the gallery, and she needed to store some stuff while they're doing some work. So, Buffy's room was free. Buffy's meant to be standing her own 2 feet at this point, so she didn't see anything wrong with that. The phone rings. Buffy answers, but the caller hangs up. When Buffy returns to her dorm room, she finds that, just like Eddie, all her belongings are missing, and there's a similar note that that they found in Eddie's room. And she's like, the note says, "Can't handle us, I'm leaving," blah, blah, blah. So the vampires have their sights firmly set on her at this point. She goes to the bronze, and she thinks that she sees Angel from afar. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure they didn't bring Angel back just for, literally all we see of him that is Angel, but it's all in our mind. But I'm pretty sure it's probably a reused piece of footage from an earlier point in the series, probably. I can't see them bringing him back just to do that, because he's just there. You just see like a side profile of him standing in the bronze. So it doesn't make any sense to bring the man back to do that. But it is what it is. It turns out to be just a guy who looks a little bit like him. So she's moping around, and suddenly a familiar voice and face pops up, and Xander, having returned from his trip a couple of days earlier, he reveals that, she asks, "How did your trip go? How far did you get?" and whatnot. And he tells her that the car actually broke down in Oxnard, and his tour of America didn't happen. Instead, he spent a month and a half washing dishes at a ladies' night club, earning money for repairs, which came to an end when a male stripper fell ill, although Xander refuses to elaborate further. Xander had a stand-in for a stripper at one point, but he doesn't want to share that story. Xander also says that he now lives in his parents' basement and he has to pay rent. And Buffy starts following him on about Sunday, explaining that she doesn't want to intrude in Willow and Oz's first days in college, be involved in them. She then admits that she doesn't think she'll be able to handle everything that's going on as far as university and that goes. College and that goes. Slipping into the UK mannerisms here. Xander then tells Buffy that in the darkest times of his life, he would get through it by thinking, what would Buffy do? And that she's actually his hero. Buffy pledges his full support and stopping Sunday. So, Xander has his moments, and this is probably one of the times. It's tough to say what I think of the Xander character. He can be incredibly annoying and good for nothing most of the time, other than just that little piece of comic relief here and there. But underutilised up to this point. But this is a version of Xander, even though he's still wisecracking, telling jokes and whatnot in this episode. When he does get serious, he gets very serious, and he's the voice of reason for Buffy in this episode and reassurance. So yes, that was good. The two research everything that's going on, trying to find a pattern in what's happening, and they find that the student disappearances started at the same time that a fraternity lost its charter. The house that the fraternity was in is now lying empty from the early 80s, whatever it may be, while zoning issues dragged on. So they're like, okay, this is when the disappearance started, this happened at the same time, so this is probably where they're hiding at. So they head over, and the two of them spy in the group through the skylight as they are rooting through, and they're laughing at Buffy's possessions. Buffy's not happy about this, of course, and Xander decides to round up the rest of the gang while Buffy remains behind to keep watch. And that's what she's going to do. She's going to stay up in that skylight and just keep an eye on everything that's going on. But no sooner has Xander left than the glass of the skylight breaks and Buffy falls through it and lands mouth and nose in the middle of the floor and between all these vampires. And she's like, just thought I would drop in, cracking a little joke. Back at Buffy's dorm room, Willow assures Kathy that Buffy isn't the kind to run away, except for that time when she did, of course. It was the end of season 2, whenever she killed Angel and disappeared off to LA for a few months. Xander turns up, and after a happy reunion with his friends, he gives them kind of like the code that she's hanging out with her friends, the friends that sleep all day and they've got no tans. So, of course, this roommate here, they're trying to keep her out of it. So they head off to help Buffy. Meanwhile, Buffy has been kicked around by Sunday once again. The most annoying vampire in the history of the show once more, in my humble last opinion. I don't know, it's just something about their character, just in the way she spoke, and just, it's just, I don't know, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I kind of did start to warm up to her a little bit later in the episode, but see, that first few appearances in the episode, I was just kind of like, oh, get out. But anyway, Buffy's getting kicked around the place by Sunday once again. When she sees the vampire break the class protector award that episode heading up towards the end of season 3, whenever the entire school give Buffy, an award for everything she did protecting them, even though her identity as the Slayer wasn't common knowledge to a lot of people. They weren't blind to see what was going on at the high school. Of course, you get demons and vampires popping up all over the place. Nobody wanted to talk about it, but Buffy was always there to kick their asses. So they give her this award, which was pretty much just like a little umbrella, there's a new word for you. Umbrella with like tinsel and stuff and all around. It's just like a cheesy little student-made thing. But it's something that had deep meaning for Buffy. And the vampires bust this thing on her. Buffy is angered enough to regain her confidence and tramp the absolute crap out of all the vampires. Well, when I say all the vampires, she's mainly taken into Sunday in this final fight. This was whenever the rest of the gang turn up, and they take out the rest of the vampires. Buffy manages to take out Sunday with a backhand throw of a broken tennis racket, and later, as the gang recovers Buffy's things from the lair, Giles comes running up to them with a whole load of his weapons with him, and he's apologising to Buffy for turning her away and is ready to fight the evil. Instead, he's just asked to carry boxes. Buffy realises that college is actually turning out to be like high school after all, so at least she knows what to expect. And one of the surviving vampires from Sunday's lair, is the last thing we see in this episode, is him running, and he's like running through bushes and whatnot. He's still on the grounds of the college, but he's suddenly stunned with a taser, and 3 masked men, armed and dressed in camouflage, approach the fallen vampire, and that's where we finish off the episode. So I know exactly where this is going. The Initiative turn up in this series, and it's all intertwined through Professor Walsh and what's his face, Riley Finn is a big part of it too. So again, I am just barely remembering details from this series. This series was originally airing in and around the time where I was getting out into the working world and dating my now ex-wife. We were dating at that stage, and we were heading towards marriage. So it was a busy time in life, and a lot of the episodes didn't get seen in the original run of the series. And I'm looking forward to getting on, checking out more of this here. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. I'll be back with you again Wednesday night with episode 1 of season 1 of Angel. I'm dying to get into that show. Absolutely love the spin-off. It has great moments in it too. That's going to do it, guys. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.